Grave overhead. The bat pole. Yeah, that ain't no batarang in my pocket. The much hyped The Batman is here, and surprisingly, well, to me, I went and saw it. And I've actually seen the start of the movie twice. Somehow I booked tickets to what they call a mums and bubs session, where parents can take their babies. How unselfish. Thinking that watching the film with several babies in the cinema for 3 hours was already going to be a bad idea. It got worse once the film started. In these bloody baby sessions, they leave the lights on. Imagine sitting for 3 hours peering through spotlights to watch a whole film that's set 90% at night. Fuck that shit. Luckily, there was another session starting in the very next cinema. What parent wants to sit with their baby in a 3-hour Batman movie? You made the decision to have a child. Now just accept the next 5 years of your life are going to be crap. Don't make me live through it. Yes, so I really did think I was done with the superhero movies. Marvel won't stop churning out trash, and Zack Snyder nearly killed me. So as far as I was concerned, I was going to skip this one, but then the controversy started. There seemed to be race-swapping issues, the colour of actors, a virtue-signalling, political-driven script. People seemed very passionate about this film. I was hearing everything from it was the greatest Batman film of all time to complete story-stealing trash. So, what was I to do? I had to find out for myself. I had to find out where does the Batman rate between the over-the-top but loved comic book Michael Keaton version and the very sad Ben Affleck version. And I also wanted to know if this film could fit into the Joaquin Phoenix Joker universe.
Please get what you fucking deserve!
Comparing the different live-action Batman movies is never quite as simple as it seems, as the world was in a completely different place when each one was made. Keaton's fun over-the-top 80s, 90s, Christian Bale's serious 2000s tone where we were going to explain every bloody thing about Batman.
Hardened Kevlar plates over titanium-dipped tri-weave fibers for flexibility.
And then Ben Affleck's Batman, made in a time when Hollywood's just turning out complete garbage and people like Zack Snyder are given millions of dollars to turn out horrible, ugly, depressing shit films.
That's just a fact. It's an ugly thing.
But anyway, I was all set to go, and then I saw the runtime. 3 fucking hours. No film should be 3 fucking hours, unless it's Lord of the Rings with multiple characters and storylines all happening at the same time. Even then, 3 hours is pushing it. 90 minutes to 2 hours is plenty of time to tell most stories. Surprisingly, and I say surprisingly because my expectations for any film are at the moment at an all-time low, surprisingly, the 3 hours didn't hurt too much at all, though the film would be improved if they shaved off 30 minutes. The other reason why I was nervous about the runtime was that I'd seen someone complain there weren't enough jokes in the movie.
Who's the mustache with the broken nose?
3 hours of a dark, somber story of Batman moping around didn't seem enjoyable at all. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want that Marvel-type humour, and I definitely don't want the Justice League type of humour.
I don't even understand the physics of how my toes hurt.
But most horror or violence can have way more of a gut punch if the story pulls you into a false sense of relaxation before switching it up. So no light and shade for 3 hours really didn't excite me at all. But Matt Reeves really pulled it off. I was very surprised how good this film was. And a big part of it is how it looks. The cinematography is sensational. Greg Fraser, who was behind the camera, is a local Melbourne boy. So you could call us friends, even best friends. You could, he probably wouldn't. And the main film it reminded me of was Blade Runner. Both Blade Runner and The Batman lean heavily into the film noir style of filmmaking. Dark, rainy cities, seedy nightclubs, and street-level crime. Both have good detective stories, which personally is the style of Batman I prefer. Something that was lacking in the Nolan films.
Someone knows where he is. Where are they? Where are they? Where is it? Where is it?
And as for Affleck's Batman, that was a very distinct style. Shit.
What do search engines do?
They search the net looking for the information you requested.
Cool.
It's all right here at your fingertips.
So yes, it isn't a bad thing if you're going to look like a film. Why not look like one of the best? One scene in particular was the nightclub scene where Catwoman is wearing Batman's eye camera lenses while walking around the inner nightclub while Batman watches on in his monitors. That looked very straight out of Blade Runner. I expected to see Zora dancing on the stage, and Batman's monitors looked like something Deckard would have used. It was all very retro future cool. And before I get into the tech, let me mention another standout about this film. One of the main things I really enjoyed, the sound design. The audio mix is sensational and a relief after hearing my ears bombarded with crap from so so many films lately. The score is quite nice. Never thought I'd hear Nirvana in a superhero movie. Not sure Kurt would approve, but it's the sound design that really stood out. Every little sound from rain to cars to motorbikes, down to the breathing and bike stands being clicked into place, are all very clear and balanced. Simply put, the sounds aren't ridiculous and competing with each other. The audio is really submersive and has to be some of the best I've ever heard to film. So don't be watching it on your phone or some downloaded fucking crap cam version. And all the tech is a bit of a relief. Where Nolan's Batman seemed to have the US Army at his disposal, well, he sort of did because he manufactured weapons for them, just like Tony Stark does, which is all very convenient, and also very hard to keep secret. Hadn't other people worked on those projects and built those weapons? Tanks and planes? Well, we do see one guy come forward and regret saying anything. It just required a massive suspension of disbelief. That word wouldn't travel about where all these vehicles are coming from.
I want $10 million a year for the rest of my life.
Let me get this straight. You think that your client, one of the wealthiest, most powerful men in the world, is secretly a vigilante who spends his nights beating criminals to a pulp with his bare hands, and your plan is to blackmail this person? Good luck.
My brother found something.
Brutal murders in a small town.
Screaming in my face and threatening me.
This is an attack on the entire legal system.
The new Batman keeps everything a lot more simple. A young guy putting a big engine in his muscle car seems a lot more believable than a bat jet plane. And somehow Bruce Wayne just knows how to do all this stuff. We never learn how Bruce knows how to do all these mechanical wonders. We also don't learn how he's good at fighting or detective work. But I'm pretty much fine with that because Nolan already did that. Nolan explained everything.
Urban pacification.
So from these films on, I'm happy to jump to Batman just being Batman and doing Batman stuff. There's also a very fine car chase that reminded me a lot of the car in the movie The Car, which is also a good thing. Matt Reeves seems to be very good at shooting the intimate stuff as well as the big action scenes. I like that he thought of little things like just including how the trucks crash. So you see him going up the ramp, which makes it more believable when he comes flying through the explosion. And the fact that he travels around with his suit and his backpack on a normal motorbike with his eyes pre-blacking out was also a really nice touch. We've always just ignored the fact that Batman wears eyeshadow. It usually just appears and disappears at will.
Right down the center.
And I know this is more of a Marvel issue, and I don't think Batman's fallen for this one, but thank God there's no fucking nanotech.
Where'd that come from?
It's nanotech. You like it?
Just a quick break. I need to tell you about today's sponsor, Established Titles. Have you ever wanted to stand out from the crowd, command more respect, and have a title that's more fitting to your awesomeness? You see, in Scotland, landowners are referred to as lairds, which in English is a lord or a lady. With Established Titles, you can buy as little as 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Adderley, Aberdeenshire, Scotland, which then grants you the title of Lord or Lady. Hence, from this day forth, I am officially known as Lord Robot Head. You even receive an official certificate that not only has this awesome crest, it also has a unique plot number so you can see the exact location of your land. And this ain't no make-believe title. You can officially change your name to Lord or Lady on your credit cards, plane tickets, even on your dating profiles. And not only will you become more desirable to potential bedroom partners, you will also be helping the planet, because with every order, Established Titles will plant a magnificent tree. These do-gooders work with the global charities One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future to support global reforestation efforts. You can purchase lordship packs, ladyship packs, as well as couples packs that come with adjoining blocks of land. Established Titles is running a big sale right now, and if you use the code ROBOTHEAD, you get an additional 10% off. So get over to establishedtitles.com/robothead to get your gifts now. The best thing is, now as a lord, I'm expected to drink all the time.
Good night, ladies.
Another surprise was the cast. I liked them all. I wasn't one of these people who was put off by Pattinson in the role. He can act, he just seemed a little small.
Lovely.
But I think he looked great in the suit, probably the best looking Batman we've seen. I'll always love Keaton, but that was just another time. Bale's mask never looked quite right with that weird little mouth hole. And then we have the tank. Well, let's not talk about that anymore. Yes, Pattinson looked great. I liked his moody, minimal performance. I've heard people complain that we didn't see enough Bruce Wayne, or that Bruce wasn't different enough to the Batman. But I thought that worked. This Batman seems a lot younger than the others, like he's just starting out. He probably still needs to refine that rich playboy image. I also like that when he arrives in a scene, a lot of the time it was very understated. He'd just walk into the scene and not do some scary drop down from the ceiling or explosion through the wall. And apparently the skinny British dude's bigger than we thought.
I mean, I weirdly got to try on every single Batman outfit for my screen test. I could only fit into Clooney's cowl, but then his suit I could not fit into. So I kind of had like a very vulnerable midsection. I thought Clooney was really tall. Like, I mean,
Like 6'1" or something.
Yeah, and I
Clooney hates you right now.
Zoë Kravitz was also great as Catwoman. Zoe has a lot of chemistry with Pattinson, and they bothered to give her a decent enough story. And even her fight scenes looked pretty good, and in a realistic turn, which, again, we don't see much these days in films. Her fighting skills were no match for just brute strength. When Batman grabbed her, she couldn't fight him off, and once the crime boss got his hands on her, he didn't seem to be having too much trouble attempting to choke her to death. She was pretty much fucked before Batman saved her, which in this day and age, having the male hero save the woman was pretty surprising.
You just have to imagine the fire.
Colin Farrell's in this, but you wouldn't know it because he's unrecognisable. I always think Hollywood don't know what to do with that guy. They've tried so many different types of films with him and most of them don't work. But in this, he's just chewing scenery and having a ball. The other actor that was a nice surprise was Jeffrey Wright. I've never warmed to this guy and his acting style. He's one of those people who just comes across as being very aware that he's acting. Asshole. It's like every movement he's about to do runs through his head a few seconds before he does it. He always just seems very on and not relaxed into the role. But in this, I really liked him. Comic book movies need actors that can bring a certain dramatic seriousness to them. And his acting, which I normally don't like, seemed to really suit this type of role.
Any of this mean anything to you?
What do you say about John Turturro? He's just always good. He doesn't even know what it means to phone it in. I enjoyed his backstory with the Waynes and making him look a bit sus. Now everything's not perfect, and of course there's been some criticisms. I've seen several people on Twitter criticising the film for not being original and ripping off other films. I don't give that type of criticism much weight because you could nearly direct that at any film. Most stories are just taken from some pretty basic storytelling principles. And as they say
there are only 7 stories. I think there might only be 1 story.
Everyone's always copying off everyone else. So having similar story beats really doesn't matter if the end product turns out to be good. Now, people have also had a problem with a couple of the lines in this film. There seems to be some real hair triggers out there for certain words, regardless of context. In a scene between Catwoman and Batman, Catwoman mentions the privileged white men and their white privilege.
All anyone cares about in this place are these white privileged assholes. The mayor, the commissioner, the DA, Thomas and Bruce Wayne. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that psycho's right to go after these creeps.
Now, I hate a lot of the false virtue signaling we see in scripts these days. I hate it as much as anyone. Terminator Dark Fate should be removed from society for how vomit-inducing that script is.
No, you're not the threat. It's your womb.
But the reason I don't have a problem with the lines in The Batman is that they are in context for the character, where Sarah Connor stupidly starts talking about how she was just carrying a baby for the men.
Let someone else be Mother Mary for a while.
Catwoman is talking about a literal group of white men who are in a privileged position. The story is meant to be set in some version of our world. A young black woman using today's language in this gritty city film makes some sense. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that this has to be in the film, but I also don't have a problem that it is in the film. We're not talking about some off-planet science fiction film or some retelling of the story we've already seen like Sarah Connor. It is very believable this character could feel this way in this film. But the biggest reason I don't have a problem with these lines, besides the fact that I'm not that fucking sensitive, seems to be the one thing these critics are missing. She is saying those lines to one of the white privileged men she's talking about. Him going out and risking his life is proving her assumption wrong. As in, he is one of the white dudes she hates, and he's out there risking his life every night. That makes for a good, interesting scene. And some critics seem very upset that during a recent interview, Zoe had the cheek to talk about some of her past experiences with the movie studios, even though not that long ago, these same upset critics were applauding when Kelly Marie Tran and John Boyega came out and did the same thing by criticising the studios. Doesn't really say much for the integrity of these so-called critics. And the more absurd ones are having a breakdown because a woman rolled her eyes about a guy crapping on about a video game. I hate to tell you, fellas, but a lot of women would do the exact same thing. Fuck, you don't have to be a woman. Start crapping on about Final Fantasy to me and I'm likely to fucking give you a smack.
Oh my god. This is the problem with the world.
I mean, she's just dumb. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. Like, if you don't know anything about the character, that's fine. 100% fine. But like, going on your jump to conclusions, Matt, to be instantly offended beyond all repair when you don't know anything about the game is like, and to use her words, everything that's wrong with this world.
Ha! Gay!
I am no fan of Catwoman, like literally at all.
Gay!
Imagine being surprised that some women aren't into all the same thing the fucking nerds are into. How extraordinary. I mean, every girl I know thinks it's super cool that I get into fucking arguments about Star Wars online. They're all super impressed.
Whoa! Take it easy, sweetheart.
Now, being a superhero film, you got to cut it some slack. You got to let your brain just go with the story a little bit. But I have to say the riddles didn't seem especially challenging.
What does a liar do when he's dead? Any of this mean anything to you?
but they probably were for the police department because they were very incompetent. My favourite was when they searched the house of the murdered politician, but they didn't bother going into his garage or notice the massive pair of scissors sticking out of one of his luxury cars. They not only missed that crucial evidence, after searching Riddler's apartment, the police didn't take any of the crucial evidence they would need to convict the Riddler, like his computer or the murder weapons. Batman just walks in and picks up the murder weapon and starts lifting carpet with it. There's a little bit of cross-contamination for you. Then Batman just opens Riddler's computer to hear what's about to happen in the final act of the movie. Now, I'm no policeman. Well, not since the incident, but you think the Gotham Police Force would be interested in checking out Riddler's laptop. Gotham's CSI unit must only work during the day. And this is when the film started losing me a bit with its citywide sewage problem. See, the climax to Blade Runner and Seven are both famous, and they both focus on our protagonist and antagonist. Now, I'm not saying they should have put Catwoman's head into a box. Sorry about the spoiler for Seven, but you should have fucking seen it by now. But I would have much preferred a climax centered around our main characters than a citywide flood. After getting into this film noir story, something a bit more emotional between Batman and the Riddler, something that had a bit more meaning for these two orphans, would have been a lot more satisfying. After all, they did have a lot in common, and up to that point, they were both only taking out criminals. The citywide emergencies just seemed tacked on as if they lost confidence in their own crime story. It felt like one of the studio execs called Matt Reeves and told him he had to have an ending with explosions.
I want fucking explosions.
I would have much preferred the citywide emergency had taken place in the next film. I would have preferred the Riddler to have stuck to his original goal of exposing the true criminals of Gotham. A villain that's doing good for the city is far more interesting than one that just decides to kill all the innocent people of the city for no fucking reason. So is the Batman the best live-action version of Batman? Well, of course, there's Ben Affleck's. Yeah, there's no fucking way of picking that one.
I agree.
And Keating will always be king, but that was a lifetime ago. And it's really hard to beat Nolan's films. His vision is so complete, and he's probably one of the best action directors going around. So many of his scenes are memorable. But, and I'm not going to make many friends with this take, Christian Bale's performance as the Batman is not aging well. It's all very, shall we say, forced.
Murder me! Rachel! This city just showed you I'm not wearing hockey pads.
So I'd have to say, and it's going to be a big call, especially after only one viewing, I would say out of the recent Batman live-action outings, I would say The Batman is my favourite Batman film. And let's see if I still think that in a year. Who knows? I might watch it again sober and think it's fucking terrible. Or was I sober this time? Maybe I'll watch it drunk and think it's terrible. Either way, who knows? But for now, the dark, gritty, film noir, comic book style, lots of Batsuit movie is my favourite. I'm as shocked as you.
What is the price for your blind eye?
Man, the timing of Batman finding out about the truck bombs and them going off was amazing. I mean, he figured it out like 2 seconds before and then had a clear view of the whole city with the bombs going off. So yeah, wasn't perfect.
This guy's crazy. When that light hits the sky.
Oh, and I nearly forgot. Could this film fit into the Joker universe? Well, not really. They look like they're set in 2 different decades, but they're both good.